You're listening to Startup Recruitment Failures. Behind every successful founder lies a tale of recruitment ups and downs. Join me on this thrilling journey and learn firsthand from top leaders on how to navigate through challenges and stay ahead of the game. We all make mistakes, but the real growth happens when we learn from them early on. Hello, Andrus. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hello, Indre. Thanks for inviting me.
For those who don't know, so Andrius Bogdanovicius started his career as IT administrator at SEB Bank, where he grew into IT architect role. He was an IT architect at other banks too, and was also a VP of engineering at fintech startups. Almost 5 years ago, Andrus founded his own startup, CTO2B. They raised $1 million at the end of 2023 and $1 million this year in March. Andrus, could you please tell us more about your company?
Yeah, actually. I spent more than 20 years working in various financial technology companies, mostly banks, spending millions of euros on infrastructure. And what I understood actually that even though it was large, sometimes enterprises who had super huge resources, I've been coming into companies and doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? The inefficiencies, the scalability problems, the availability problems, and others, it's repeatable from one company to another. And after having this wonderful journey and a lot of learnings there, I understood that, what's next, right? And the next obvious step was, either go and do the same in yet another company or think about the way how I can share my experience at scale. And this is how CTO2B was born. So together with my co-founder, Alexei, and few other guys from the companies we've been working before, we digested this idea, how we can help many companies in the world at the same time. So that's the story of the CTO2B. Yeah.
Nice, sounds amazing. I think it's the best when you build something out of your experience and seeing in front of you the inefficiencies and problems you can solve. So very glad to see that you are learning from your experience. And since this is Startup Recruitment Failures podcast, I would also like to talk about your experience and stories and insights you have gained during recruitment at different companies. So maybe we could start with the first one, because you had a crazy experience building 300 people company from scratch. Could you share this with us?
Yeah, that was an amazing story. It actually was a story of one big company in Lithuania, and I haven't started alone there, but we had a task like it was a bit bigger, but in terms of recruitment, the goal was to hire 300 people in 7 months, and we call it Team 300, right? So that was the craziest ever experience in hiring I had. So at the same time, it also was a wonderful learning because when you have like 6 interviews during one day, so you have to make sure you take notes. You have a system how you evaluate and compare the candidates, etc. Right? So you need to do it in very systematic manner because if you not collect yourself, you while during the sixth interview in the evening you even forget whom you talked in the morning, right? So it was really good way to enforce some discipline into the hiring process. So with this experience, actually it was even though it was very exciting and built a lot of knowledge to myself and other hiring managers who worked alongside with me in this journey. After that, when we achieved the goal, and we ran the company. Actually, I worked for more than 5 years in that company. So what we have learned, this super fast hiring pace is not necessarily very sustainable, and it brings you a lot of challenges after that, right?
Hmm.
So the attrition ratio for next 2 years was maybe the other KPI, which was the biggest concern for us. And all the hiring mistakes we did because of the fast pace, because of myself and some other hiring managers been
What
learning in this
mistakes?
journey,
What
like
mis-
we've been fixing for next 2 years.
what mistakes did you do due to this fast recruitment?
Yeah, so initially I would say maybe it's very similar to what I've been doing also, like being more junior hiring manager. So you initially start to focus on the hard skills, right? Whether person is qualified to do the job in terms of like professional experience, has he done something similar before and stuff like that, right? But what's really important to understand that it's only a part of the journey, right? Even more important also, something what we like to call soft skills, or how persons, how those good specialists will fit into the team.
Hmm.
And I do remember one of wise, older, more experienced colleague has said, it's not necessary, the this hard qualities was the most important. It's important, how team works together, and maybe if you need to fill the gap of those hard qualities, that's something what is easy to fill, right? And like while fixing those mistakes, and when people can come along together, can't collaborate, working towards solving the complex problems, right? That's what's very common in our IT sector, right? It's better to replace that team member with somebody who come along very well with the team, and all together they achieve much bigger results and bigger successes than having bad atmosphere in the team, and like somebody who can't collaborate with the others.
So are you saying that there was like not enough time to dig deeper and to select people according to the cultural fit?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're hiring at a fast pace, right? You do the shortcuts, right? So after that, when we looked into the process, when our team got bigger, when we more integrated into huge enterprise, we started to apply more of a HR good practices. Also, our HR team grew bigger, and they helped us to fix the process itself. Maybe it's become a little bit longer. We had more steps. We introduced more thorough personality checks, and all of those elements which came into the process, right? It helped us to look into the potential candidate from more angles, which is actually good both for the candidate and for the company, right? Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to join the company and then get upset. The same as employer, you don't want to hire a person who will not work with you for a long period of time because it's super expensive.
Hmm.
According our statistics, what we set to ourselves is that if the person is you're hiring a person that doesn't pass the probation period or don't work with you for at least 6 months, like you're losing the money.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. So, okay, so you hired 300 people. What was the percentage you realized that is not a fit, basically?
I think for next 2 years, it was back in 2014, 2016, like this period of time, right? So I don't remember like the exact figures, but I would say it's something like attrition ratio were around 30% or something. So basically for normal IT company where it's not a service desk, right? Where attrition and
Yeah.
people are changing very frequently, right? So it's quite a huge numbers.
Basically one third
Yes, one third, which
out of
is
300, and
yes. So
during 2 years. And so it's it's also very interesting to hear how you were navigating through this, right? Because it looks like it's very challenging. So 100 people out of 300 are not really suitable for the team they are at, or even for the job position. What were the first steps or actions you were taking, or how did you started realizing and accepting the reality, right? Because it's also the moment you need to admit that something is wrong, not to continue doing the same what is most probably not working efficiently.
Yeah, so good question, right? So it was a challenging situation for us. You know, when everything is good, everybody is sitting and happy and like clapping their hands around the table. But you know, when you start to struggle with deliveries, when you see that the atmosphere in the team doesn't work, right? When people are not willing necessarily to collaborate very well, or you know, it appears that one person fits looks like doesn't fit culturally to work with another team members, right? So there are a number of actions which you can do, and it's not necessary that we've been, I don't know, like firing people or something, right? But we've been looking, you know, also maybe, you know, with initially, you know, to do some internal rotations to see what people could work together, and maybe there were some like horizontal moves in between the teams. That was like a first action, because you know, anyway, somehow you have selected that person, right? Somehow there were certain bar which person has passed, right? And it it's not that, you know, person is absolutely how to say wrong, right? But it's all about the team performance, it's all about working efficiently, right?
JobRely now offers full cycle recruitment services, from creating a job ad to presenting shortlisted candidates after initial interviews. Fill out the project brief, and candidate profiles will be sourced for you. Connect your LinkedIn account, and a personalized messaging sequence will be sent from your LinkedIn account to all of the potential candidates. And after initial interviews, a comprehensive scorecard of shortlisted candidates will be presented. Visit jobrely.com and start a free trial. Okay, so and to fire people, it's also a very challenging task. First of all, to decide who to fire, and because if there is like a toxic dynamic in a team, you firstly have to identify where is it coming from, and maybe it's spread so widely that it's not enough to fire only one person. Were there any specific practices you were using for this? How you were dealing with this situation?
Yeah, I would say to identify where the how to say, where the root causes of the let's say negativity is coming within the team. It was not the most complicated part, right? The most complicated part is how to deal with that. And as I said before, maybe like what is super important, that I had like quite few success, you know, before firing person, you know, of course you work on the like, I don't know, typical things like performance improvements plans, and actions like how you can improve, right? And also, you know, what was like this bigger thing, I would say, successful, which made sure that the attrition ratio is not going even higher, is those internal movements, which we did, because you know, person which doesn't fits into my team, you know, he might be a very strong performer in completely another team, and that's what's happened sometimes in those bigger enterprises.
Okay, okay, understood. And yes, so the story with the opening Mambu and being informed that COVID is here. Can you tell us more about what happened?
Oh my God, that was the most the most biggest event in my professional life, I would say. You know, it was, the story began even earlier, before the COVID. I think Mambu been trying to headhunt me for something like 9 months, and I was like leaving my previous employees. So the process was so long. It started like during 2019, while all the things has been settled and agreed. So it took me also a lot of, one of the reasons, why I was negotiating with Mambu so long is that I was wondering, to open up this center in Lithuania, and for them, it was, you know, to pick a location where to do that. And I was the guy who convinced that, Lithuania is the best location to expand their engineering capacity. And, after we have got the deal, aligned everything, it happened so that, according to the plan, I should start February 1st, 2022. And before that, I know like we've been signing contracts with economy ministry of Lithuania, Invest Lithuania, all of those deals, real estate, etc., etc., etc. We are formally opening the company in February. I am like the only one employee in the company in Lithuania, and I have to start hiring, right? So I made a deal with, I think, 3 or 4 recruitment companies at that point in time. So they bring me the leads, the candidates. We've been opening a bunch of roles. We start employer branding activities, advertising. What is Mambu in Lithuania? And nobody knows. Nobody heard about that. So number of activities is going on. And suddenly something like COVID happens. We need to bring kids from schools, etc., etc. This like big of uncertainty. I do remember it was maybe Thursday or Friday, something like end of the week, and starting from Monday next week, like everybody's sitting at home and it's not clear what's going on, right? And
I remember this.
yeah, and I like receiving the calls, right? Receiving, and I first one who called me in the morning was director of the company who is responsible to deliver furniture, right? And he tells me the story. Look, you have ordered this nice furniture, so tables are coming from Germany, so we are delivering them in April, like promised. But chairs are from France, so France, Macron is closing the borders, so we don't know what to do. Our trucks are standing next to the border. We are not able to collect anything from there and stuff like that. And I say, look, man, that's terrible, right? We are hiring best-in-class IT professionals, IT engineers in Lithuania, and they will not be able to work standing. We have to do something about this, and we talk about potential workarounds. He collects some thoughts and says, okay, I'm looking for workarounds. Don't worry, Andrus, maybe we will think about something else, maybe like, I don't know, temporary shares, something else from other orders, blah blah blah, whatever. And said, okay, first problem solved. Hanging up the phones. The next one is recruitment agencies, and saying with like very simple statements. Look, Andrus, suddenly everybody is super happy where they are working right now. We will not be able to deliver you any candidates. I thought, okay, so you don't see any opportunities? No, like we talked with all of them, so pipeline from us will be zero. I thought, okay. So then talking with the next recruitment agency and the next recruitment agency and the next recruitment agency. And I thought, okay, then call to some others, maybe with whom I haven't agreed anything. Everybody is saying exactly the same. And then I'm sitting and thinking, so maybe the chairs, it's not the biggest issue which I have in the morning. Maybe I will not have people who will be sitting on those chairs. Maybe I don't need them at all. And it was, I would say, craziest like few weeks in my life when it was like gray hair started to appear on my head at that point in time. It took me, how to say, a lot of dedication to pick up my phone, go through the address book, and start calling colleagues, ex-colleagues from other companies I've been working previously, and inviting them to join me in this journey. Of course, it was super difficult because nobody knows the company. It's like a startup, so like what do you do with the startup? It's uncertainty. So you have to work in the enterprise where everything is like calm and settled. So somehow probably we will survive, right? That was the key message, right? And when you go to the startup and it disappears, so we will all be jobless and stuff like that, right? So all of those stories was which I've been telling and convincing guys to join me in the journey, right? So it was very difficult, very emotionally consuming for me. I was 100% sure that, it will be okay because I know I have an investment. I talked with the investors. Nobody is, I know, changing any decision. We are like building digital product. It should be okay, right? So there is like financing is in place. So you kind of sure, but you still need to convince people. So I am super grateful and happy for those 20 first employees who believed me, who joined me, and I would say those couple of months was the biggest and the hardest. So big thanks if anybody of those first 20 is listening to the podcast right now. I think you guys are the ones who made a difference and helped us to succeed. So we build it all together. And when at the end of the 2020, Vilnius Go was doing uh, awards, like in various categories that they are doing. So there was award of like fastest growing IT company in Lithuania, and we received it. And of course, it was again the lockdown in December. I think it was before Christmas. So they brought that award again, not to the office, but home to me. It was, I asked, so guys, so who was like the competitors of us here in Vilnius? So, who might be like closer to us? And they said nobody. So look, Andrus, everybody were trying to survive here during this period, and you were the only crazy team who was growing during this year.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was like, I would say, super amazing experience. I believe I would remember it
What
during whole
made
my life.
you still believe in and pursuing, right, and approaching? Like, if all the recruitment agencies are saying that no, what made you believe that you can still do it?
uh, Made believe candidates or myself?
Yourself and the situation in general.
Yeah, so I would say, so for me, uh, like psychologically, it's first step is to make sure you believe yourself in what you are doing, right? And of course, when like everything strikes and this super uncertainties happens and you don't understand what's going on, so I was like simple human like everybody else. It struck me as well, but I first collected myself. I understood that I have big commitments. Many millions are already committed to the venture I am doing right now. I understand it wouldn't disappear, right? I have to deliver, and I need to find a ways how to deliver the commitment which I have done, right? So, and what I say to myself, right, when you build a story line and like the plan which you believe yourself, right, that's the crucial moment, right? Because once you have something in the pocket to what you as a leader believe yourself, then you can tell the story and make sure others believe that, right? But so for me, that's like step number one. Anything happens, right? You need to start believe yourself, because if you don't believe, like that's done, right? So that was like step number one. And then step number two, of course, if I would share the same story with the recruitment agencies or anybody else, it's how to say, it would probably not work, because it's also about uh, I would say about this emotional connectivity, which is again was super hard, because that was the first time you are doing it over the phone, because any time before, any hirings before was always in person, right? You invite candidate to the office, you meet them in person. I even like had some unconscious rules myself that I don't sit at the next end of the table with the candidate because it doesn't helps me to understand whether I click with the candidate or not, right? So there's like this emotional click, and you start doing it over the phone. So it was super weird, super unnatural. Of course, it helped that a lot helped that I was calling through the people whom I was working before. So yeah, maybe this then how to say emotional contract was done from the previous experiences, and that's probably what helps a lot. Maybe these three key elements, right? Because I would say any other hires which were potentially talked to, or maybe even few hires, not from the personal network, but in this weird uncertain moment, I don't think it was any success out of that.
What happened? What was like you didn't manage to select properly via the video interviews?
Uh, I think it was challenging at the very beginning. Now, like after 4 years working remotely, it becomes more natural. But at that point, it was a challenge to understand this. And you don't have the processes. I would say I would give the credit to companies I worked before, and I learned about the recruitment process because the way how they do personality tests, the HR partners who help you to collect the insights about the candidates, the feedback they collect, the feedback which they share. The way we also had some elements, how you can observe the candidate when the HR recruiter is talking to the candidate. All of those elements were super helpful, and this like enterprise infrastructure, which I was hiring, which I used to hire before, was super helpful. And suddenly, when you are alone and starting from the scratch, you don't have all of those uh, let's call it fancy tools which helps you, and you just like how to say warrior in the field alone. So that's super difficult, and I would say you even start to value those uh, previous processes, tools, and people you had to help you before even more.
And was it only because of these like fancy tools you were missing? Because now it was like you hiring without HR team, or was it also because it was video and it wasn't in person?
I would say both, right? When I say tools, so
What would what were you missing in video interviews? Like body language, like what would you say there is not enough to have? Because nowadays companies, and even previously many companies are interviewing only online, so no meetings in person. But for you having these two experiences, how would you compare?
it's you know uh, I I do remember, when I was like mentoring and coaching some other leaders, I was always saying like one super important thing. uh, there are some criterias which you use to hire candidates, like professional skills, personality traits, and you go and you look like very consciously and using your logical brain to understand whether this candidate is suitable or not. Sometimes there is a feeling that you don't know, you cannot consciously explain it, but there is a feeling that it's better not to go with the candidates. And what I was like, all my advice was always like, if you had a strange feeling and your subconscious mind tells you that something is wrong, but you cannot consciously explain that, no hire, right? So with this personal interviews and personal meetings, right, there are more neurons, more feelings which you can collect, right, if compared to what you can collect while working remotely, right? So when you don't have experience doing that remotely, so naturally for me not having that experience was super challenging, because instead of using all of my senses I used before, I am losing some of them, right? Of course now I am used to it, not how to say, even like talking right now, not employing all of my senses to talk with you, but it's still something unconscious. But I would say that's something every one of us has, and we should trust our gut feel. And if there is a possibility to use all of your senses, use it.
Great. So thank you for this. I was actually about to ask what would be your main advice for the freshly born startup founder. So you answered to my question in advance. Okay, so thank you so much, Andrus, for your time and for sharing your experience with others.
Thank you, Indre, for invitation. It was pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe on the media of your choice. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you need help with your recruitment, please visit jobberly.com.